And sometimes the stuff just gets freaky. The longer and longer you don't betray yourself. That's a way to look at this. You start to get these, I call them divine downloads, like information straight from the source that you cannot receive through any other medium besides those individuals have been receptive to those downloads, or the universe gives it to you, or God gives it to you. Scripture comes close, actually. Here's the latest one. Now, this one is, I'm going to do my best to convey this because this is coming straight from source. There is a cap to which you can render pleasure in your life. Now, one of the ways that I would convey this is if the reality CPU, if the reality computer, okay, is rendering what you experience out there in the world today, there is a limitation to the degree to which you can experience levels of pleasure, right? It doesn't go on exponentially. There is a cap. Now, once you know this, you are more direct and sensitive towards the degree to which you manufacture your own. I would call this artificial pleasure in that way. So when I was in the grips, in the throttle of lust and desire and addiction, what I was doing fundamentally, this is back in 2017 and 18, was I was manufacturing and rendering my own pleasure through the reality computer. Okay, now be it adult material, be it I was smoking a lot there, so smoking a lot of cannabis, I was smoking a lot of nicotine, and my dopaminergic sensors were just they were fried. Right, there was so much of these are the two synaptic clefts. There was so much dopamine in that cleft that the receptors picking it up were just they didn't know what to do with it. There was too much in there to allow the comparison between when it was there and when it was not. That's actually how you experience anything in life. That's how free will happens, because you do not have free will if there isn't a contrast between light and dark, between right and wrong. I mean, that's one of the existential problems that, and you're going to have to forgive the seeming modesty here from me. People still don't understand, which it just baffles, it baffles me. Why do we have to experience awful things happening in the world? Well, because you wouldn't understand good things. You need contrast. There is no light without dark. This really makes me think there's a really interesting scene, if you've ever watched The Matrix Reloaded. Not the best trilogy, but I think the first film is probably up there in my top 10. Fantastic premise, right? Fantastic premise of the film. He has a conversation towards the latter end of the film, the second movie, with a gentleman called the Architect, who is the individual that creates the matrix or the simulation, right? Think about this conversation, right? He's having a conversation. If this is a simulation, and whether or not you like that word is, I have ambivalence with that word. I mean, the Hindus use, Maya. Let's just stick with the premise that this is a simulation, to use their terminology, okay? You're asking the creator why he made it so. Okay. Now, one of the first questions Neo posits, I don't think he actually posits it. I think the Architect explains his reasoning behind why there are essentially evil in the world. Because he starts off by saying, when I first created the Matrix, right, and I plugged people into this artificial reality, the first time I made it perfect. I made it absolutely perfect. I made it, there was rainbows in the sky and the sun was shining constantly and everybody was eating ice cream and singing and dancing, and it was beautiful. It was utopia. That's what he first made. And he said, you didn't get it. You couldn't handle it. You didn't understand it. You never had free will, control, or agency over your lives, because you need darkness as an an articulating factor in what to avoid and move towards the light. You don't derive quality in life without a sense of meaning, and a sense of meaning it arises from the dark. It arises from what paths not to go down. You need it. Okay, so that part over. Going back to this idea, okay, of there is a certain capacity that you have in your mind, in your CPU, in the reality computer, into which the degree where you start to consume and experience pleasure in the world. If you are a fool, like I was a fool, and I started to manufacture my own pleasure through cigarettes, through adult material, through cannabis, I mean, through alcohol, there are so many other things, then reality senses your attempts to accrue pleasure in life, and it starts to pull back, right? It's really, really interesting. And this happens in real time, by the way. You will experience it by yourself. If you play an evil trick on yourself by artificially creating pleasure in your life through, low vibrational things, okay? Because there are things in life that are healthy that accrue pleasure, or they accrue joy as opposed to pleasure. So the distinguishing factor that I would use to describe an analogy would perhaps be the difference between a good hard workout in the gym secreting serotonin, okay, comparatively to smoking loads of cigarettes and getting that kind of nicotine high, dopamine, right? Fleeting, cheap, finite, flawed. If you are of the latter camp, right, whereby you are secreting dopamine through artificial means, you're kind of cheating. You're kind of cheating the simulation. The simulation is looking at you and going, you're kind of cheating here. You're not playing the game in regards to how it was meant to be played. You're starting to input, what do they call them? Mods in the. I've kept this analogy. I need to stick with the analogy now. You're putting in mods in the game to change the way the game's being played. But you can't get away from the foundation in which this whole system is built, which is there is a limit. There is a limit to the degree to which you can experience pleasure in your life. And I don't care how many mods you put in there, there's a ceiling to this. And you're not going to get past it no matter how many devious tricks you play. And to be honest, you play that trick on yourself, because if you are accruing so much dopamine through artificial means, then I can't give you jack. I can't give you anything. The reason why life is so dull and grey and miserable is because you're doing it to yourself, right? The universe is looking at you and going, what are you doing? Be patient. Be patient, okay? I will give you it as long as you stop cheating. You can play the game and experience really big secretions of dopamine in the game as long as you play the game by my rules, okay? And this is really interesting if you've ever been on both sides of the coin here, gentlemen, meaning, again, you've been in a really, really dark place, like myself, and then you started to push that away, right? You're starting to play the game by the game's rules and not using any mods or any cheats. And it's difficult at first. Oh, it's so difficult at first because it was so easy when you could cheat, where you could add those mods and things become, that there wasn't a delay in which you can experience dopamine in the game, right? You could have it now because you had the cheat codes, because you were smoking, because you were watching all this material. So there's a lag time. That's the hard part, right? Where your character has to recalibrate. That's a good word. That's a good way that you can think about it. You have to recalibrate to the conditions in which you play the game. Then something really interesting happens, maybe a month, maybe 2 months' time, is, oh, music sounds a lot better. It sounds really good, actually. I'm listening to I'm on a Tame Impala kick at the moment. I'm listening to Currents by Tame Impala, tremendous album, by the way. I'm listening to Currents by Tame Impala. I'm listening to Let It Happen. It's almost like my ears are going to finish sexually, if you know what I mean. And I've never experienced that before. I mean, I knew the music was good, but didn't feel this good, right? Because now there's so much space, there's so much room, there's so much sensitivity life can give you back. Food tastes phenomenal. Oh, no, it's easy to eat raw, healthy food because I have that capacity now. Yeah. I haven't, if this is, I'm always using this analogy. If this is kind of the ceiling in which you can experience pleasure, when you're on the coke and the weed and the adult material, you're always here. And there's no room. There's no room, right? You're constantly hitting the top of the ceiling, right? But when you're playing the game how it's meant to be played, now there's a lot more freedom. There's a lot more range in what you can start to experience with novel pleasure. This is really, really fascinating to me. And again, the degree to which you understand this is equal to the degree into which you experience it. So you won't know what I'm saying until you fast. Yeah, and I don't mean fast in the typical sense, just food. I mean fast from the nicotine, fast from the caffeine, fast from the sexual impulse. Yeah, and there's so much more range. And then what's really interesting is that it appears not in just those examples, but it appears in serendipity as well. Meaning, I mean, female attraction will probably be the obvious one. Yeah. This is how the universe looks at you. I'll try and convey this the best I can and as concisely as I can. That probably won't happen. I'm not good with conciseness. Look at my tweets if you want conciseness. If you are self-pleasuring to adult material, okay, the universe has no motivation, has no means, has no rationality to put women in your path, because the degree to which you experience pleasure from those women has already been reached by the artificial women. You don't have the RAM. You don't have the computational power to render those pleasurable experiences, because you're on 12 gigabytes of RAM, right? You've rendered 11 and you've got 1. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's a great analogy, by the way. I'm not good with computers, but I hope you got that. Whereas if you're not doing those things, you've got 12 gigabytes of RAM, you're probably only rendering like 3 or 4. Then you have, 9. You've got 9 gigabytes of RAM to render female attraction, a girlfriend, a wife. I don't care. You have that range now. If you want to find that range, it starts by introspective practices. It starts by recalibrating. It starts by coming back to baseline. It starts by, you're going to hate me for saying it again, breathing. You need to breathe. Reset the nervous system. I just did I think it's like 25-minute holotropic breath work, which is on Patreon. It will shake you to your bones. You'll get tetany, which is like when your hands cramp like this and go into claws. You will come out of that thinking that you've been in a hyperbaric chamber for a couple of days. Your brain will be fried, but you'll feel amazing, and I can't recommend it enough. If you want to support me, if you want to support the channel, you can find it in the Patreon below. Only $5. These are not theories, these are facts. Speak soon.